I got into a lot of trouble with the Germans, obviously. I think we've said already I had a total at the end of the war of 415 days solitary confinement, which was a record. I'd had 5 courts-martial in Colditz. Nobody else had more than 2. The first spot of trouble I hit, I had acquired a trumpet. And one morning we needed to sabotage an Appell. We were having 2 a day minimum, sometimes 3. We did have up to 5. The purpose of Appells was to see that everybody was there and nobody had escaped. And when somebody did escape, for example, my pal Bill Fowler, and Van Doornik, the Dutchman that went with him, the thing to do then was to muck up the cause trouble, stir it all up, get the Germans angry, mill about, until it took them ages before they could find out that a couple of blokes were missing. And meantime, the chaps were having a good start. Bill Fowler needed that start. Well, I became a bit of a dab hand at this, and escape officers, Pat Reed first and then Dick Howe. Dick Howe has said so in a book, and he has said so on nationwide television way back in 1985, I think it was. He has said how I became the chief disruptor, goonbaitler, some people called it, of Appells and that sort of thing. I seem to have a knack for it, because I'm naturally rather naughty, I suppose. It was fun, and I enjoyed doing it, and everybody laughed, and the spirits... If you have day after day after day, all the same, it's intolerable. And if anything happens that causes laughter, spirits are raised for some time and people went on talking about it. It was great. My first court-martial was over the trumpet. We wanted to muck up an Appell, and I'd got this trumpet, and I played a sort of trumpet voluntary salute for the German officer coming on, and he shouted that it should be confiscated, and the guards charged at me to get the trumpet, and I threw it to somebody else, and it developed into a bit of a rugby match. The trumpet was passed from one to another, landed up with a chap called Kenneth Lee, who wouldn't let go of it, had a tug-of-war with a guard, and he and I were the co-accused at my first court-martial. We'd been in the cooler for some time awaiting trial, and we got a smaller sentence than the time that we'd spent waiting, so we were virtually off free. My next court-martial... Now, I'll make a point here. It would have been useless for us to sabotage an Appell only when somebody had escaped. It had to be done on a fairly regular basis so that the Germans couldn't say, something's up, somebody's escaped. They didn't know whether it was us just being a bloody nuisance as usual or whether something had really happened. So it was very important to keep this malarkey going. When Bill Fowler escaped, the escape officer said to me, "Pete, we've really got to foul this one up." I got a few volunteers and we went up into the British quarters, which ran the length of the yard, about 3 stories up, 3 or 4 stories up. There was a kitchen up there. And we went up there and hid ourselves. And the parade down below was a bit stroppy, a lot of giggling and milling about. Bill Fowler and Van Doornik and co. had only escaped an hour or 2 before this morning parade. And we had to keep this thing going for as long as possible. So we're up in this room, and the Germans come up, and they find one of us, and then they find another. And so the officer running the parade said, "Lock them up there, we'll deal with them later." So they put a guard on the door outside our quarters, and we bolted it on the inside. We couldn't get out, and he couldn't get in. And then they began to get a semblance of order down below, and we'd got to muck this up, hadn't we? Well, we'd got a kitchen with taps up there, so we made water bombs. I was a great water bomber. I was a very good shot. And they had a card table down in the yard with everybody's photograph and their ID thing, the German stuff. And they were beginning to get order. And I landed a bomb on the card table. All this stuff was scattered. And everybody roared with laughter, milled around, had to be got back into order again. Well, that took another half an hour or so, which was great stuff. And then the guards wanted to get in at me, but they couldn't because we were locked. They were locked out, we were locked in. So they tried to progress with this counting parade. Douglas Bader was down. He had turned up at Colditz in his book, what's it called? Reach for the Sky. It says, Douglas and Pete Tunstall made a natural team. We were both very naughty, and we enjoyed the sort of thing that we were doing. He used to encourage me like mad, old Dougie Bader. Douglas Bader was down in the yard, and I had a bucket of water. And I'd slung one out on the chaps, you see, and they all pretended it was terrible. They shrieked with, "Oh, God, how awful." There was a whole milling crowd of these idiots because they'd got wet. And I got another bucket of water when they got a bit organised. And I was just going to chuck it out. Douglas Bader signalled to me to hold it. He was down in the yard. I waited and waited. He gave the order, "Now." And up went my bucket of water, and it was aimed at Hauptmann Eggers, the security officer. Just missed him, but it splashed him. He ran for cover. Cheers from all the boys, peals of laughter, and so it went on. Right. Court-martial number 2, assaulting a senior officer on active service, causing a senior officer to take cover, something. Oh yes, interfering with a German parade. Now this lot was good for a death sentence, some of it, for a court-martial, and breaching the rules of the camp that nothing would be thrown out of windows. We had a barrister with us, a young up-and-coming barrister, Black Campbell. He was a lieutenant in the artillery, I think, Black was. And he's now Lord Campbell, and a great legal eagle. And he organised our defence for courts-martial. They wouldn't let him appear. And he made the point that it was impossible to see who was directly beneath one of our windows because all the windows had prison bars on them, which was contrary to the Geneva Convention. And it was impossible to see who was directly below, which was true. But Bader told me when to send my load of water down. And I got a very light sentence on that one. I was only found guilty of disobeying the camp order. I couldn't possibly have seen Eggers.